it, and tomorrow's Monday.
Yeah. Happy 4th of July weekends.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you
Hmm.
do anything fun other than stay home and watch Star Trek?
Right. Not really. We were just talking before we went live. We both watched Hamilton, or at least the first half of it last night.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a fun experience to hear the distant fireworks, out the window while Hamilton is on. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, this is cool.
Yeah. And I could see, I know some people were saying like it wasn't really doing it for them. But I'm really enjoying it. I think there's been a couple songs that really just got to me. And I think that
Oh
their
my God.
recording is very well done. So that's been fun.
It's really well done. I had the pleasure of being able to see it when it was in San Francisco, and being able to now see it with the original cast is just
Yeah.
incredible. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. See, I'd only heard like a couple of the songs and that
Oh,
was it.
really?
Yeah, I really haven't. Cuz I when I heard the first like the sort of more popular ones, I was kind of like, "You know what? I really want to just save until I can watch this." So,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
And I'm glad I did. I think some of them stand out. The stage choreography lends itself more to some songs than just hearing them. So,
hmm
but
for
yeah.
sure.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about Hamilton.
Unfortunately.
Hey Adam, we are here to talk about Star Trek. So, if it's your first time joining us, we go through and we discuss episodes of Star Trek. Samantha is watching them for the very first time. I am a hardcore Star Trek fan who now works as the science consultant for Star Trek, so I am the guiding light for Samantha. Curious.
Leading me through.
And you've watched Voyager, Picard, and Discovery.
Yeah,
And we are in season 7 of TNG. So,
yeah. We're like plowing through. This is kind of cool.
yeah, we are plowing through. And then we were also just talking about probably, maybe, possibly throughout this idea of Lower Decks is starting August 6th. They announced the release date this week. And so probably at the end of our weekly Sunday one, we'll discuss that week's episode so people can drop off if they don't want to hear about it yet. But we can geek out about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited.
Me too.
So,
Me too. That
yeah.
sounds really, really good. So I can't wait to watch it.
Awesome. So this batch we're watching, or we're talking about today, so we're in TNG season 7. We're going to discuss Liaisons, Interphase, Gambit. Got a lot to talk about with Gambit. Phantasms and Dark Page. So these are some heavy, deep episodes.
Yeah. We've had some like just really kind of not slog, I mean, but like just not so many light, fun episodes
Yeah.
in these groups, but
yeah, not a lot of light, fun episodes, I think is probably the best way to phrase that.
Yeah.
So let's jump in then with Liaisons. So this episode, man. This episode is where the Enterprise crew takes on ambassadors to be part of this cultural exchange. The ambassadors are Liaran, and there's like 3 main ones, and 2 of them are on the ship on the Enterprise. One is with Deanna Troi, and he's eating a lot of chocolate and candy, and frankly made me pretty sick to my stomach. The other one was originally supposed to be with Riker, ends up deciding that he would rather be with Worf, much to Worf's dismay, and basically spends the entire time trying to anger everyone. And then Picard ends up on a crash shuttle with Voval, and he dies, and Picard finds this person, Anna, who's been crashed on the planet for 7 years, so he's like stranded with her. Then it turns out Anna was the alien all along. And they were trying to learn about love. So between all 3 of the aliens, they were just studying pleasure, antagonism, and love. And oh boy, howdy, this episode stresses me out.
Yeah, it was funny because we've seen this similar kind of concept come up where it's like obviously it's revealed at the end what they're actually trying to accomplish, and the girl on the planet is this alien in disguise and all this stuff, and Of all those types of episodes, I would say this was probably my favorite. I kind of thought the concept was interesting in that they're making first contact with this species, and that species is trying to learn these emotions because they don't feel them in the same way, or they don't feel them at all, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of interesting, but the more, like, especially with Anna's story, the more that rolled out, I was like, no,
shut it down. Yeah, it was very
Stop.
like it was very much like Misery, like just straight up captured crazy lady type behavior. And I think for me, the reason I struggle with this episode is it's just my highly empathic personality is just getting grossed out, irritated, like with alongside all of them, and so I just spent the entire episode in a lot of discomfort. Right. But I do think you made a really good point though, that if there were aliens, or there are aliens who just don't have the same brain structure that we do, such that they're trying to study what our emotions are and then just trying to poke at them and evoke them and study us, it is an interesting concept for sure.
It is, but they could have also just told them maybe that that's what they were doing.
Yeah, it's an ethical shit show, I think is how I put it in my notes. And Picard's reaction is just, I mean, for me, again, I was like pretty stressed out. You had this whole Misery scene where she's like, but I love you. And then at the end, he's when they have the whole reveal and he explains what's going on. Picard's like, yeah, in our culture, we call that crime. And thanks, but no thanks. And also bye. Like, right. and I'm like, I kind of wanted to have that lead up to be like, and so you're gonna be under arrest, and now you get to learn about our penal system. But yeah, I don't feel like the aliens learned their lesson necessarily, which, yeah.
I know. Yeah, no, I don't think they did. And there was the reveal of what they were doing was kind of interesting, especially with the guy with Worf. At the end he was like, oh, thank you, and Worf was like, what? Yeah. You gave me antagonism or something. Yeah. And like
yeah, the conclusion of it was just a little bit like, oh yeah, weird. Okay. Yeah, Aaron, I didn't catch the cetacean ops mention. Did you catch that? Was there one where they might have offhand?
Dolphin cetacean ops. No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. But it's
you could be very right.
The thing is, though, too, the whole scene on the crashed planet with her, and I guess there were just some things, I don't know why I reacted emotionally. I mean, I guess I reacted in the correct way to this episode. The set was very, like, original series style of, like, this is a stage set. And then the sort of, the big reveal thing was very original series feel of, like, hey, we're a new alien species. So it was a very, like, intelligent with that. But yeah, Worf was Worfable in this, particularly in the opening scene where he was like, why are we doing this? I don't want to do this. And Riker's like, you just have to, all you're doing is welcoming them. I'm the one taking him around. Like, you don't have to worry about it. And then the guy was like, well, I want to go with Worf. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
You're stuck.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, poor Worf.
Yeah, poor Worf. But it's an okay episode. I just think, and it may have lent itself a little bit better. Again, we've struggled with the chemistry with Picard and love interests in the show. I don't know. Do you think that how did you feel about their chemistry?
I thought they had more than he did with the other lady.
That he actually fell in love with. Supposedly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is odd because it's odd. And he's in protector mode at first. well, she helps nurse him back to health, but then he's in protector mode a little bit of like, we're gonna get out of this, and you gotta trust me. And I did feel there was a moment when they had not necessarily love chemistry, just better on-screen chemistry, I guess.
That's fair. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. I think it just stressed me out a little bit.
Yeah, it's a stressful episode.
It's a stressful episode. Anything else you wanted to add to that one?
Nah.
Yeah. Okay.
We can move on.
So the next one is Interphase. This is episode 3 of season 7. So this is the one where it's kind of cool. The cold open especially starts with Geordi essentially crawling through Jeffrey's tubes without visor, without like anything, and he's trying to repair something. And even my reaction is, at first I'm like, Geordi doesn't have his visor on, so something's up. And then when he was like, I smell methane and ammonia and chlorine, and I'm like, why are you still crawling?
Exactly. Yeah, I know. That looks like you should be going the other direction.
Yeah. And then of course they pull back and reveal that essentially it's just this not even humanoid probe that they've wired up to basically do what they need to do, and a human can control it, or humanoid at least can control it. And with Geordi's visor tech in his implants are very well suited to doing this, because he's got the sensor. He has like the sensor translators already implanted. So they're using this to try to like work on a salvaged ship in a gas giant. Then they get news that his mother's ship is missing. And they go to try to track down this ship and then try to save his mom. So how'd you feel about this one?
This I don't know, it was actually kind of interesting watching when the characters have emotional things happening. They don't think logically, which is human. But Geordi's like, that's my mom down there. That's my mom down there. Like, we have to go save them. She's telling me these things. Whereas if anyone else had been in that situation, he would have been part of the crew members saying, like, think about this. It's probably not your mom. Like, It just seems that when those characters are at the forefront of those emotional stories, they lose all sense of the logical conclusions of think about this objectively.
Right.
Which again, I completely get, and it's good storytelling, trope, but it kind of cycles through everybody.
Yeah. And I think it can be frustrating for us as viewers who rely on these characters to stay the steady line. Hey, Uncle Bill, thanks for coming.
Hello.
So, yeah, I mean, it is, again, it's a stress. Maybe that was it with these episodes. They were all stressful. They're all stressful episodes. That, Geordi's kind of gone off the rails. How does it end again?
It basically ends with Geordi accepting this was not his mother, because it was the aliens that were too high in the atmosphere.
Right. Yeah, that was it. See, and that's just one of those things. It's like another sort of really interesting story setup, but just a little bit of a what conclusion. Yeah. So, hey everyone. But what I did really like, and it surprised me that this hasn't been used as much in Star Trek, is this idea of that virtual interface. Because it was pretty cool. The fact that like he was reaching down to pick up the body, and he was like, or to pick up the thing that was covering the body and the ship, and he was like, it's too heavy to lift. And I think they said like increase the tractor beam to 80% or something, and then he went up to lift it again. So there was obviously like just some communication to this probe that said, okay, that's a tractor beam, but it was Geordi reaching down to pick it up that like engaged that. That was cool. And then like when he burned his hands, because the sensors, it's like it's translating that information and activating these parts of his brain. Now, in terms of like actually burning his hands, that's a little bit different, but to actually overload the sensory input to make him think that was it.
Right. And then there was the one of the more interesting parts of this episode, I think, was when he's, been reprimanded. I can't remember quite what led up to that specifically, but he asks Data for help to go back down and talk to his mom again and find out more about where she is. And Data's like, I can't, this is breaking the rules. This is going against orders. And eventually he does agree to help. I'm not sure. I can't remember what Geordi says to get him to help, but it was an interesting, moment. Like he's asking Data to do something that he's really uncomfortable with because they're friends. And yeah.
It's an okay episode. It was interesting though to see, we've talked about this a little bit before too though, that we don't really have a lot, they haven't been able to do a lot of character development with Geordi LaForge.
Yeah.
And I think this is another struggle with that, where they've tried to make a Geordi-centric episode, and there's just a disconnect. And I think for me, it was like, the way that his relationship with Data has always been great. That's always, and like his friendship and his ability to trust people and his love for engineering, that's all rock solid. But it surprised me that he had two parents in Starfleet. Like, I don't know why that surprised me. I think it was just, as opposed to, someone like Harry Kim in Voyager, who's talking about his family and talks about his, wanting to be home, and that this is like an underlying embedded character trait. We never really have seen Geordi's underlying motivations for being in Starfleet, or like why he's an engineer. They had that one glimpse when him and Ensign Ro were phased out.
Yeah. And
Picard was reminiscing on his first encounter with Geordi. But yeah, it felt like a little bit of a disconnect.
That's actually a good point. We don't, because he's one of the main characters, and we don't know nearly as much about him as we do about the other main characters.
Yeah. And Andrew, it's a good point too. The tech doesn't age well when our actual tech, that it ages at a different speed and a different level. But this one was kind of interesting, and I think particularly because we're getting more. This was like a weird hybrid between holodeck and VR capabilities, and like drone technology, kind of. That level of haptic interfacing, like haptic and sensors interface, does kind of feel like that might be achievable, but is future tech. I don't know. It's pretty cool. But anywho, anything left on this one? You want to talk about? Okay. So Gambit. This is a two-parter. This is the big one for this set of episodes. I'm still not convinced that I know every aspect of this episode.
Right.
It's a lot. So this is the one real quick where Picard basically is cold open in a bar talking to some smugglers, disappears. They think that he's dead. They find DNA traces. Riker's having a hard time with it. They're trying to investigate what's happened. He gets captured by them. Then Picard is actually part of this crew undercover as a guy named Galen. They kind of work together and confront the Enterprise. And then in the second part, Picard starts working with one of the smugglers who's disguised as a Romulan, but she's actually a Vulcan named Talara. That's her like Romulan name. They're not searching for Romulan artifacts, they're searching for Vulcan artifacts. There's like undercover Vulcan factions that want to reject and become like more Vulcan isolationists. They plan a mutiny against Baran, who's the captain. They're trying to figure out how many people will do that. The Enterprise encounters a Klingon who's like getting this artifact to meet with them. Riker then contacts Vulcan to say, "Hey, we got your stuff. We're here. We're good to meet you." And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no undercover Vulcan operative here. So she's actually, I think she's one of those isolationists. And then she gets down there, then all of those artifacts assemble a weapon. It's a really complicated episode. Did I get most of it?
I think you did, but I had very much the same reaction. I was like, well, wait, who like,
yeah. To the
what is happening?
That even in the dialogue, at one point, Picard is like, man, what a tangled web we weave. And we're like, yeah, it's tangled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, Aaron said it gives, like, I don't remember anything about it. And then I finish it and I don't remember it again. Yeah, it's
basically.
Yeah, similarly, it started and I was like, I don't remember this episode at all. At all. I didn't remember anything about it. And I think because it just gets so complicated, at one point your brain just stops trying to figure it out and stops trying to piece it all together. And you're just like, I'm just going to watch this. Because it is high stakes. There's some good sort of back and forth. Will they, won't they? What's going to happen? Are they going to figure it out?
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think of this one?
Yeah. It was an enjoyable storyline, actually, but I had some moments similarly to what we were talking about last time with the lore data episode. I was like, why am I not enjoying this more? Like, this should, and I think it's probably because it was confusing and just like convoluted is the right way to say it, I think. But I liked sort of the reveals and like the fact that she was basically a triple agent, and the high stakes, and I love those moments when like the Starfleet people give like the clues. Like, when Riker's when he comes on the ship and Picard's there and like, kill him and all the stuff, and Riker's looking at him like, okay, is that really Picard? Like, what do I need to do now? And then they start like having this like major eye contact. And Picard's like saying things slowly and deliberately, and Riker's like, oh, like, wink, wink, nod, nod.
It's like, I am your Picard. I know what I'm doing. I'm in control of the situation, and you have to trust me here. Yeah, absolutely.
But those moments they're so enjoyable to watch because everything else slows down, and they just like, they're looking at each other. And I'm like, is anyone else seeing like,
do I need to rescue him? Does he know what's going on?
You can literally see the gears turning.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Andrew pointed out and too at the end with the weapon, when she does get the weapon, it was very sort of like, aw, the weapon works on love. But basically what it is you point it at your at the target, and if that target is aggressive and wants to fight you and is feeling aggressive thoughts, then it hurts them. Mm-hmm. And but if that person whom you're trying to attack is at peace and not aggressive, it just passes through them.
Yeah. Sweet.
I did kind of have that moment when she gets the weapon and she's like pointing it at the smugglers initially, and when like this big shimmery cloud opens up, and I was like fully expecting some sort of like Indiana Jones melty face terror thing to happen.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Thankfully it didn't. But I was fully prepared for that.
There have to have been some people in these writers' rooms that were like just major Indiana Jones fans, because like there's so many like archaeological themed episodes in Next Gen that I'm like, okay.
They were like, we really want Picard to just be my Indiana Jones.
Yeah, basically.
And yeah, so Horrible Hog was saying like the tech doesn't seem so bad post World War III, and there is kind of a charm to that they've rebuilt a lot of tech that you imagine all of our stuff is wiped out and then build it up again from scratch. Yeah, it's the interesting thing. Yeah, and your other point too about if it would pass a target if they're threatened by you and aiming with a phaser, but not particularly aggressive in their self-defense. I mean, that's up to the however that gun works.
Questions.
Yeah. It's interesting for me. Actually, the scientific analogy for that would be like everyone calls it different, but it's the cornstarch and water, like the oobleck, non-Newtonian fluids, where it's like if you punch it, it's hard, and then if you like slowly stick your fist in it, it oozes like a liquid, and that's reacting to your behavior.
Of course, yeah, interesting.
That's my attempt at sciencing that. It's not very effective. But yeah, so the first part, like you said, this was kind of the focus on Picard and Riker trying to figure things out. They tried to have a little bit more of an emotional beat with Riker refusing that Picard had died.
Yeah.
I don't think it was terribly as successful as it could have been, just because they had to like move the plot along. But it was still interesting to see.
Yeah, actually, that's right. I forgot about that, because he was acting captain, and there were some few moments where he was like, I don't want this responsibility. I don't want to accept that he's, like you just said, accept that he's gone. Deanna's trying to like get him to accept it. Yeah, that was interesting.
It was interesting. And then Data as a captain was also fascinating. Once Riker gets captured, Data, and basically Data takes command, and he puts Worf as his number one. And their relationship is not great.
No. That was really, there was some tense moments there that were interesting to watch. Data's basically saying like, why aren't you respecting me the way you would respect, Riker or Picard? And he kind of has a point, but at the same time, I still sort of maintain that I feel like Data has some limitations that make him a less than effective officer sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that, and there was some growth in that respect, though, too, because when he does pull Worf aside into the ready room to have that one-on-one, which he intentionally is like, he's going to dress him down and be like, you have to stop undermining me. And then Worf explains, he's like, but that's what I've always done. That's what Picard, that's how we behave. You need that person to be questioning your stuff. And then Data kind of counters that by saying, well, that works if you're a tactical officer. Like, that's the duty of a tactical officer. It's not the duty of a second in command. The second in command is there to support, get this stuff going, and then counsel in private, not undermine me publicly. That was kind of like what I heard from that argument. And then Worf kind of concedes, and it is one of those where it was so tense, but I feel like it very naturally concluded. It didn't feel rushed. It wasn't like, fine, we're friends now, bye. Worf conceded, and he was like, well, maybe, or Data said, I will relieve you of command. I'll put you back at tactical. It's not going to be a demotion. We're just going to call it a transfer, if that's what you want. And then Worf is like, I'd actually really like a second chance. Because I appreciate what you're saying. And Data gives him that. And it was really good. I really liked it.
It was good. Yeah, and I think you're right that the way that they did it wasn't rushed, because there were some moments then throughout the rest of the episode when you could tell Worf was like wanting to question or say or was, but took the beat and took the moment to digest what Data was, requesting and moving through. And then Data had a moment where he accepted Worf's suggestion, and so it was a really, that was a nice mini subplot of this episode that was done really, really well, I thought.
Yeah, and I always appreciate too when they manage to have those effective character moments when it's pairs that we don't normally see together.
Yeah, exactly.
And when Data legitimately was like, I'm sorry if I ruined our friendship. He's like, but this is how it has to be. And then Worf is like, no, if anyone ruined it, it's me. But I think we can move past it. And they do.
They do. So Yeah.
It's really good. But and we've always, I mean, we've both said that we like this, and I really love the episodes where people are put in charge or in roles that they're not traditionally put in, that are typically promotions, and they're not very good at them, that they have to learn that's it's a different type of job than what you're doing. And I think that's what we got with Worf going from tactical officer to the second in command. That's a transition, and I think that was one that made him realize maybe he's not ready for that.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe I'm better off as a tactical officer. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's a good one. The first one kind of focuses on them all getting set up, and I do like that this is a two-parter, even though people mentioned in the chat too that we managed to erase it from our brains somehow, because it gets so complicated.
Yeah.
But I will say the second part, I had a hard time, like, I didn't really get distracted watching this, because a lot of these I've watched many times, and so I'll put it on and I'll be, on my phone or doing something else and kind of half watching it. But this one, the second part, I was just kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Are they? But it had some really good beats to it. It was really well
really
paced.
Did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have to so Romulans and Vulcans are very similar, obviously, but do Romulans have the same kind of logic thing going on? No, right?
No. The Romulans aren't. Yeah, so they share a common ancestor, but they do not suppress their emotions in the same way. If anything, it's like, if you're gonna, which we shouldn't do because this is not appropriate, but if you're gonna distill the entire species down to a single character trait, the Vulcans, it would be like the emotionless, and then Romulans are secretive. Like, that's kind of their thing. They do share a common ancestor, but they didn't go through. I mean, someone correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since I read up on my Vulcan Federation history, but I think that that's right. That the Vulcans, and she kind of alluded to that, right? That, yeah. So my point is, like, she's disguised as a Romulan, right? Mm-hmm. And there's certain points in her dialogue where she brings up, it's like a Vulcan would talk, like that's the logical course of action, or this is not logical. And she says it enough times that I was like, is she slipping up? Is she like accidentally talking like a Vulcan even though she's supposed to be a Romulan? Like, it was enough like a Vulcan would talk to me that I was like, cool.
Okay.
I think that was intentional. Yeah, I think that was intentional to be, she's actually a Vulcan. Like you said, she's a triple agent. So when it's that convoluted, it wouldn't surprise me that they consciously put those in to just be like, no, she's Vulcan.
She's not who she appears to be.
Yeah, exactly. We do kind of have to laugh for a second about the reuse of names in this because you haven't watched Enterprise, but her Vulcan name is T'Pol, which it's technically spelled T''Paal, but there's a Vulcan in Enterprise called T'Pol. It's T-P-O-L. And so that got me. And then there was also an Admiral Chakotay in this.
I know!
Right?
It's just like thrown out like really, really underhandedly, like quickly. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. And I was like, surely not. And then it's like spelled one letter off, but it is Chakotay. And it's just, it was really funny.
And it's someone who doesn't look like they would be a Chakotay.
No. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But also, Voyager was in development. I don't think it hadn't aired, but it was in development. So they had a Chakotay character. And maybe, I mean, there are people in the chat here who know more about the behind-the-scenes stuff from this era than I do, but they may have been trying, as they were developing Chakotay's character, at least leaving that open, like Admiral Paris and Tom Paris, leaving that optional, that they could use that in the future. But, it was the Admiral Chakotay. And we've had Janeway. Wasn't there an Ensign Janeway as well? And they're just messing with us.
They are, apparently.
Yeah, they're just intentionally trying to lay these seeds and be like, is it intentional or is it not? That's up to
you.
you.
You be the judge.
Yeah, exactly.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, because that was it. Yeah.
Fanfic, go for it.
Exactly. Yeah, because Ensign Janeway had an appointment with Deanna Troi at one point.
Yeah.
It was really funny. Yeah, Vulcans. So Romulans were created during the time when Vulcans were adopting logic, and the offsuit, soon to be Romulan, left Vulcan and found a new planet. Yeah. That's funny. That's funny, Aaron. Yeah, just go to Gambit and pick a name. No one will remember this episode anyway.
I like the common name, like Bob.
Yeah. Exactly.
Common name.
Oh man. And I mean, I personally, I do like the Vulcan lore idea that you know, Andrew alluded to here as well, but just this idea that they consciously rejected, you know, that the Vulcans started to become too various things and ended up following this logic path. And that's something that, like, when we get to the original series is really great about Spock's character, that they, you know, that this idea that it's suppressed emotions and that it's a conscious, consistent thing that they always have to work on. And yeah, I like that. Anything else in this one?
Only that, can somebody help me out? Like, Baran, who does he look like? He reminds me of somebody from some like 80s sci-fi movie or show or something.
Yeah, I looked up
reminding me of
actor, and he's been in a lot of stuff, but there wasn't. I mean, I would categorize him as generic 80s sci-fi dude.
It was less like, it was like his makeup and he looked like a woman, first of all, from something I've seen. I don't know what it is.
Oh. I mean, he kind of occasionally made me think of Khan from Wrath of Khan, that you might have just seen pictures of.
Maybe.
But
okay. It looked so familiar, and I was like, oh.
But the actor's mannerisms, there were a couple times where I was like, do I know him from something? So I don't think you're far off with that. Also, before we move on too, I want to talk about the giant Klingon. The Klingon giant. What was his name? I did Karal. Like, he was the one that was in the shuttlecraft at the end that was delivering like this last piece of this artifact. And he gets out of the ship and he's tall. And if people don't know in the chat, my brother is 6'10", so that's like, when I see people like that, I'm always like, oh, my brother could play that, because he's also totally proportional. He just looks like a giant. And yeah, it was just weird. It's just funny.
I love that little moment when Beverly was like, I'm just gonna get behind you here.
Yeah, I did. I really liked all of their interactions. Like, their when they were like, we can do a health and safety check. That's something that we can do. And she was like, well, that's pushing it. And he's like, I know, but he can file a complaint. Like, and then he's like, we got to go through the data logs. She's like, that we can't justify health and safety for that. He's like, well, maybe there's like a radiation surge to see if it's corrupted or not. Like, it was kind of it was awful at how bad they were at that devious behavior.
And I love that the Klingon was just like not saying anything. He was just stone faced.
Oh, it was so funny.
It was so funny.
Yeah, that was great. Like, for being a one-off Klingon character, he was very well developed.
Yes, exactly.
Also, hi, Muhammad. Yeah, that was so funny. And he just got out and he was like, yeah. And then when he stood up in the ready room, we were like, oh, yeah, he's huge. But anyway, that was just funny. And yeah, when they were like, we're, you know, when they hail him, and they were like, oh, we're the Enterprise, you know, do you need help or anything? He's like, Karal. So that's your name? Do you need anything? No. That was awesome. Okay. So carrying on from that, Phantasms.
Yes.
Are you ready to talk about this one?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
this is the nightmare episode. This is the one. So now they kind of call back to Data having the ability to dream, which I think we've established his ability to dream is probably. I personally think it's a programming flaw because every time they talk about it, it ends up being nightmare fuel.
Yes.
Of course, that said, I mean, I barely remember my dreams, and maybe there's a reason for that. So, yeah. But yeah, it's nightmare fuel. It's awful. This is the scary one. This is the one again, and I said this with the last Data Dream episode. If you want something creepy to watch on Halloween and you're in the mood for Star Trek episodes, this should be top of your list. This is probably the creepiest episode ever. However, I will say it also has some of the funniest scenes and moments in TNG. I love it. Yeah, horrible. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Yeah, it's awful. His dreams are awful. All right. So, how did you like this episode?
Ditto to everything you've said. If I had seen this episode instead of the other one that scared me, this would have done the same thing. Yeah, the whole bug thing was just a huge nope. Because this is the one where she scans they're invisible, right?
Yep.
Yeah. As someone who's had bed bugs before, no thank you.
Hard no.
Because they are invisible. Yeah. And very hard to kill.
Yeah.
So that was a huge nope. And then just the weird dream stuff, the cake and the and the mouth thing. I'm like, yeah. Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's terrifying, Aaron, and there are great memes in here. It's yeah, I hate this episode. I hate this episode just because it's so unsettling. They did such a great job. Worf's like eating that cake, and he's like, oh,
mint frosting.
And then it ends up being like Deanna Troy's body is all the cake and her head's like screaming. Oh my God, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Terrifying.
However, there are some, so the non-nightmare fuel ones, I feel like they emotionally counteracted with some great material. One being the fact that Picard is like actively trying to get out of this commander's ball thing.
Oh, yes.
And they just keep getting onto him. I think it was like Captain Nakamura or someone was like, are you gonna be there? Are you gonna be there? You're gonna be there, right? You're gonna be there. And he's like, Riker's like, I think they're on to you, Jean-Luc.
That was brilliant. Yeah, and then the fact that like the warp drive thing is not working, like Geordi was like, well, I'll get on it, something's going on, and Picard's like, no, take your time.
yeah, exactly. That was really funny. That was really, really funny. They also, so, I think, was it Brett or Zach? Someone here who's supported me for a long time, and I thank you, and I appreciate it all, had sent me this cartoon recently that cracked me up, and it was referenced from this episode, and I'll post it on Twitter when I find it again. But Riker giving Alexander a jazz album is one of the greatest like offhand character comments ever, and the cartoon that I have is basically like an image of that, of the two of them like chilling out to jazz music, and like Alexander's mind is blown by jazz, and
nice.
Like it's the most adorable thing ever. This image of Riker being like, jazz is pretty cool, right? Yeah. Here's an album, and Worf is like, oh God.
Poor Worf is like, just noise, and Riker's like, nope, it's jazz.
Jazz. Yeah, it's so
brilliant,
good, so funny. And you finally got to see the meme that you were waiting for, where Data is telling Worf, tell him he's a pretty cat. Tell him.
Oh, that's this one. That's right. You must tell him he's a good cat. And Worf's like, I will feed him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like holding him like that, and then sneezes on his way out of the door. It's fabulous.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for that scene since we came up with a Worfable.
Yeah.
And now I've seen it.
Because people had replied with that image, and you were like, what?
What?
Yeah, tell him he is a good cat.
Yeah, so it's funny.
Fabulous. So yeah, they have some really good counteracting terror moments. But once but the rest of it is genuinely terrifying.
Genuinely.
Yeah, very upsetting, very grotesque style imagery that, it's not. Yeah, Aaron! We'll share those with everyone when we see them. I'm excited.
Nice.
Yeah, we coined this when Samantha started to fall in love with Worf, because he's so adorable, and so we call it a Worfable. And it's amazing. Yeah, it's so the other thing you were saying that if you had seen this one when you were a kid instead of the other one, people might not be aware because we have some new viewers here. The reason we started all of this was because you had avoided Star Trek most of your life because an episode you caught at a friend's house scared the daylights out of you and you didn't remember what it was.
The bejesus out of me. And I remembered, like, I knew it was Next Generation because it was Geordi's. He was the main character that got turned into the blue vein thing.
Yep.
And
we eventually saw it. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
It was a big moment.
It was. And then we had to pause for a little bit.
I needed to process.
Yeah, we had to process that. But yeah, Phantasms, I feel like is just a classic episode because it's so weird and creepy and like everyone remembers this. It's like when you talk to I'm saying fellow because myself is one, X-Files fans, everyone has one episode that just messed them up. And whether, like, yeah, you're right, Andrew. Like, it's not scary, like, Aliens, like, Event Horizon type terror, but it's just the imagery is upsetting. Just that deeply upsetting thing where if you're thinking about it before you go to bed at night, it's not great.
Yeah, no, I'll be thinking about that mouth thing that's going to be in my brain for a long time.
The one that gets me is Crusher drinking a straw out of Riker's head.
That was weird, but it didn't really it wasn't spooky or scary to me. Creepy. It was just like a dream weird thing.
Yeah.
But the cake and the mouth.
Yeah. See, everyone has their one thing. It's like the X-Files. Everyone has one episode that they were like, well, I'm out.
See you later.
I need to process this. Yeah. So yeah, but Alexander and Riker chill into jazz music. I'll post that on my Twitter page.
Want to see
after this because it's so funny. All right, so the last one we were going to talk about is Dark Page. So you're going to have to do some of the lifting with this one because I didn't get a chance to rewatch that for this.
No worries.
So my apologies here. But this is where Lwaxana is on the ship helping a species who are nonverbal. They communicate telepathically, and so she's kind of being a translator for them, and she collapses and she is like overcome with fatigue, apparently due to all of just the overuse of her telepathic ability. But then we find out that she's kind of carrying a lot of hidden memories that are not helping the situation, and in fact kind of causing it, and all this telepathic communication are starting them to come back up. We find out that it ends up Deanna Troi had an older sister named Kestra who died when she was a kid, and she had kind of wiped that from her mind. And so the process for her to recover is to not bury the memory, but resurrect it and acknowledge it and enjoy the happy memories that she has. Deep. Really
sad.
Yeah.
Really sad episode. And I guess I was just thinking as you were describing, like at first I was not getting the connection between why that memory was associated with her helping these aliens with the telepathy. But I guess it's because the one guy's daughter looks like her daughter. So that was what percolated and made those memories come closer to the surface for her. But yeah, I actually thought this was a really good Deanna Lwaxana mother-daughter story. At first I was like, oh God, here we go again, because Lwaxana is not my favorite.
We know.
But,
she's one of mine, but yeah, I know, no worries.
But especially when she was like, you need a husband, and here you go, and I was like, oh my God. But then, you know, as it goes on, she, like, this was a really good moment of them coming closer together, I think, as mother-daughter. But and it was like little baby Kirsten Dunst. I was like, that kid looks familiar. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, little baby Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, and Muhammad pointed out Picard, like, I'm impressed because this is a kind of a one-off episode, even though it's a lot for Deanna Troy's past. But there's the parallel of her losing a kid in Picard, but then also naming her daughter Kestra. I didn't make that connection, that she named her daughter after this sister.
Wow, yeah.
So they never really mentioned that, and it was just kind of a, oh, wow.
That's a very full circle call out.
Yeah, yeah.
I do. I like that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that effort. I think that's really sweet. Yeah, I mean, you know, I love Lwaxana, and I feel like with her, they've managed to get some really, oh, thank you, Uncle Bill. They've managed to get some very tragic stories in, with her past. Not just this one, but then her, you know, the one that really messes me up is the one where she falls in love with that guy from the planet where they kill themselves after 60 or something, because they are no longer useful. Yeah. That one breaks my heart. And I think that was probably when I fell in love with Lwaxana as well. Yeah. That I just... And then, I mean, you'll see her, she comes back in Deep Space Nine.
And the thing, like,
You'll see her again, and I love her in those episodes, so.
See, the thing is, like, I like her, I would say I like her now as a character, but she has these moments where she, like, loses my trust.
That's
fair. You know?
Yeah. I wouldn't want her as a mom, I'll put it that way.
Right. Maybe as a cool aunt, but not as a mom.
Yeah. She kind of, like, in terms of my, like, the type of person I would want to be when I'm that age, I'm like, I would not be opposed to being that just crazy, quirky, bad influence on the people around me.
Yeah. I mean, it's just sometimes she doesn't listen, and I'm like, oh my God, stop talking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. There's one episode in Deep Space Nine that I cannot wait to talk to you about that she is in.
Oh, no.
It is probably my favorite Lwaxana episode, but
nice.
Yeah, it's the one in the elevator, so if that reminds anyone.
I can, actually, you just said that, I'm like, I can already imagine what that might mean.
Yeah, it's fabulous. It's amazing. So yeah, it's nice to see some more story be built out of her, and yeah, exactly, horrible. We try not to think about it too much. But it's nice to see some more development from her, and I really like her as a character. So
yeah.
Anything
else? She is a great character. I will definitely say that.
Yeah. And what was it? No. I think someone said that because the actress is Majel Barrett, who's married to Gene Roddenberry, and she's the voice of the computer, and she's played characters in TOS. And I think someone posted online, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who said it, but we really need to start calling, like, this era of, you know, the sort of Gene Roddenberry Trek type time as the Majel Barrett multiverse. That just made me so deeply happy. It's just, I like thinking it that way. It's the Majel Barrett multiverse.
Yeah.
We love her. So yeah, I think
that works.
That's it for these episodes. let's see what we're going to talk about
Ooh.
next. I'm mostly just chomping at the bit now to get to Deep Space Nine, in case you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I can't wait to watch Deep Space Nine.
We're going to have so much fun in that one. Okay, so... All right, we are going to talk next week. We will do Attached, Force of Nature, which I think may have just won the patron to discuss on Tuesday. So that'll work too. Oh no, we're doing Enterprise feature tense on Tuesday. Different thing, sorry. So Attached, Force of Nature, Inheritance, Parallels, The Pegasus, and Homeward. Those are some good episodes. That's going to be fun. So, yeah, we will be back. Is that a corollary to the Jeffrey Combs multiverse? I think between those, it's, yeah. Between Majel Barrett and Jeffrey Combs. I don't think you've seen... Because he didn't do any aliens in Voyager, but he plays multiple aliens throughout Star Trek, so you'll get to meet him. I love Jeffrey Combs. He knows I love him. So I could not keep my fangirl down when I got to meet Jeffrey Combs. I love him. So, anyway.
All right.
So that's it for this set. Any final words, Samantha?
Nope. That's everything.
Awesome. So we will do Attached through Homeward next week. And the rest of you, enjoy your week. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, you can find our Twitch channel. We do these on Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock Pacific time. So thanks, everyone, for joining.
See you next time.
Yep. All right.
Thanks, Mohammed.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.